I'm John Raymond Mireles. I'm an artist in San Diego, California. I've been working as a photographer for over 30 years. Most of my career has been spent doing commercial work, but over the past 5 to 6 years, I've really focused on creating photographs that speak within the context of contemporary art. Welcome to my studio. This is my studio here in Logan Heights. I do photography here, but mostly I do my post-production and my printing and my mounting and framing and work on all my various art projects here. My work tends to be very conceptual in the sense that there's always a concept driving the work. I don't tend to just go out and shoot pretty pictures. I mean, it's fun, that's what I do for my hobby, but I tend to come up with an idea first and then really work to execute on that idea. Well, as somebody who's lived in the outdoors for my entire life, when I heard about the federal government opening up these wild lands in southern Utah to oil drilling and coal mining, I got angry and thought, well, what can I do about it? And I thought, you know, I'm going to go to southern Utah, to Escalante National Monument, to Bears Ears and photograph there. But for me, it wasn't enough just to create pretty pictures of the area. I wanted to sort of to investigate further. And so I had this idea that I would photograph in areas that had once been protected, federally protected against mining and drilling, and then were now removed, and then do something with those photos that illustrated the damage that would be taking place if this mining and drilling took place. And it was really kind of an iterative process. I had the idea and didn't really know what I was going to do, and then I had the idea, well, what if I change the photos in some way? And then it became, well, hey, what if I actually physically damaged the photos so it would be symbolic of the damage that could take place to the actual landscape? So I thought, well, what if we get members of the public to come in and contribute to this process of destruction? So then it becomes more interactive, and part of what I'm constantly trying to do with my photography is explore new ways that I can express myself and that photography can be expressed as a medium. So in incorporating this interactive element to my photography, I thought it served both the project really well, but also it's a way to move the medium forward in the context of contemporary art. So once I had the work together, I came up with a name for the project, and I decided to call it Disestablishment, because, you know, the idea of establishing a national monument, you know, a monument is established. There's this sort of monumental feeling to the word of establishment, and then so we're disestablishing it. The way my process works once I'm finished shooting is I bring everything back into the studio, download it in the computer, and then there's a lot of time I spend going through the images, figuring out what's going to work. I always try and construct somewhat of a narrative with my work. And here we're not talking a narrative in a book form, but just, you know, looking at different parts of the story so that you have a more complete story of the location. Then I work with the curator at the San Diego Museum of Art to come to a final number of photos. And once I've got the images selected, I send everything to the printer. I have a large format printer. It's a 64-inch solvent-based printer, and I print everything to a cellulose paper. It has a nice texture to it and rich colors. And then I laminate the material to a substrate. I use foam core. So I have a laminator here in-house as well. Run everything through the laminator a few times to make sure that it's good and stuck. Then after the laminator, I trim everything down to size. And then once it's all set, I coat the work with matte finish to protect the work. And it also gives it a little bit of texture and a little bit of depth. Because I'm not using glass, there's no glazing. Typically photography is behind glass of some sort, and so that there's a separation between the viewer and the work, and so I like to eliminate that if possible. So using this coating really allows the viewer to experience the work firsthand without an intermediary there. I make the frames. I start with a hardwood walnut material that I cut to size, and then I use my chopper to give it perfect 45-degree angles, take it from the chopper over to the underpinner where I pin it all together, and then the final step is to just pop it all in there, and then it'll go on the wall. I do everything in-house, from printing to the framing, and it does a couple things. One, it allows me to experiment a little more because I'm the one working with the materials, so I get to see how the materials work. It also it really brings me into contact, like from a tactile, touching, hands-on sense with the work. So it gets me thinking. I would not have done this project in the way that I'm doing it if I weren't actually doing every step of the way, because again, I can experiment and I can see, you know, how the materials are being used. I think part of the idea came from I do so many prints and they don't work out, and then I slash them, I destroy them to throw them away. And in that process of destroying the work, it sparked an idea in my head. Oh, what if I do that actually as part of the artistic process? So my hands-on process, you know, doing everything here in-house, I think really does contribute to the type of work that I do and the way that I do it. So the first step is that the artwork, the finished artwork, when it's framed, will go up on the walls of the museum. And I think it's going to be a beautiful show. I think even if it were just hung as that, people go, wow, this is really beautiful work. But it doesn't stop there, and that's where the fun comes in. So I'm going to take those prints off the wall, I'm going to pop the prints out of the frames, and I'm going to set up a booth in the Plaza de Panama, which is the area right in front of the museum, and then I'm going to invite the public in to physically damage the prints. I'm going to have a variety of implements, if I may, that I'm going to invite the public to use to damage the prints. And what I hope happens here is a dialogue. I think what we're going to see is people going to say, well, why do you want me to damage perfectly beautiful, good artwork? And that's exactly the point, because if we're unwilling to damage a representation of the landscape, why are we okay with allowing the actual landscape to be damaged, destroyed, permanently altered? So that's really the central point of this exhibition. And I think through this interactive process, I'll have conversations like that. And hopefully it's not just an abstract conversation, but there's something more visceral about the way this exhibition's done that people can take to heart. A few years ago, I was applying to a graduate MFA program, and I was speaking with the director of the program, and he said, well, we don't have a photography program here. Is that okay? And I said, I'm a photographer. I love photography. I've been a photographer all my adult life, but I want to destroy photography. And not physically destroy photography, but change the way that we interact with photography, the way we define photography, the way we use photography. And in this case, I'm actually destroying photography, which is kind of ironic, but it also fits with my larger mission of really changing how, what photography is, what contemporary photography is. And that really does get me excited. Most of my thinking has gone into the point up to which I've damaged the work. And honestly, going past that is still somewhat of a new experience because it hasn't happened yet. I think the point of contemporary art is to constantly be pushing in new directions, exploring, and not just covering what's already been covered. So this is an exploration for me. I think it's an exploration for art. It's really great that the museum has welcomed me into the gallery so that they can be part of this process of creating new art. You know, I invite members of the public, if you're seeing this before the work has been damaged, to come back, keep your eyes open for the dates when I'll be out in the Plaza de Panama, and I invite you to come and join me and swing a hammer.